And joining me now with reaction, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, let me pick up where the former commissioner left off there, and that is he did run a campaign that was pretty anti-cop in New York and stop and frisk. That was a big issue in the campaign. He talked about centuries of racism. He talked about how he taught his son to treat and have to deal with cops because there was a threat to him because of the color of their skin. And, and then the cops end up turning their back on him. I have never seen anything like that before. What is your reaction to all of this? Do you think that's justified?
Well, it was a time of high emotion. I can understand why the police officers did that. I probably don't think they should have done it out of respect for the office of the mayor, if not for, Mr. de Blasio. But, he has said some things that are really pretty terrible. All those comments you played add up to him saying that the New York City Police Department is substantially racist, and that is totally untrue. That hasn't been true for decades. I mean, the New York City Police Department is one of the most diverse police departments in the United States. The incidence of situations involving misconduct go down every year. It's probably one of the best disciplined departments in the country. And the reality is, the reason that these cases often turn out with no indictment or acquittals are because most often the police officers are justified in doing what they're doing. Police officers don't leave their houses in the morning wanting to use their gun. In fact, they know what a terrible problem it is to use their gun. So this whole notion that police officers are running around trying to kill people of color, or I have no idea why the president and the mayor want to perpetuate this. This is a horrible thing to do. It's totally untrue. Whether it's connected to this murder or not, I don't know. That, a psychologist would have to figure that out, and I can't. I wouldn't want to make that charge. But I certainly, even before these murders took place, I was very, very upset by the tone that's been set in this country. I consider this hate speech regarding police officers.
Yeah, and it's gone on for a number of months.
Of course.
It came from the president on down. Look, you were very clear in speaking out in both the Michael Brown and Eric Garner cases. I don't see any evidence in either case that they were race-related. I don't see it. I've asked people to bring it to me, show it to me, and I'd be glad to look at it. But the grand jury's made their decision. By naming names, who do you blame most for creating this atmosphere that has now existed for months that you talked about earlier? Well, I think go ahead.
Well, I think the reality is you've got to put the blame first at the president, because he makes it nationwide. To have Al Sharpton sit next to you is telling every police officer in America that you're willing to have as a close advisor somebody who has hated the police for decades, who has helped to cause riots in New York City, who is anti-police before he even knows the facts. And the reality is, in the Brown case, you couldn't possibly have a clearer case. All this stuff about his hands up, that was disproved by 7 independent witnesses who were African American, and they go around perpetuating this. So I have to put the responsibility at the feet first of the president, and then for the situation in New York at certainly the mayor. Why did this?
So in other words. But I want to be clear here. So basically they set a narrative in the country that was a false narrative.
Propaganda.
That those cases were about race.
It's propaganda. It's no different than the propaganda they used to have in the Soviet Union. It's absolute propaganda. Both of those situations were crimes. Well, we're talking here, all of this, we're talking about crime, about reacting to crime. Where does it occur? Where do you send the police? Those police officers that were assassinated were moved to that particular precinct from another precinct.
How?
Because there was more crime in the precinct they were in. They're the ones who were protecting the minority community.
How does a mayor with 40,000 police officers possibly govern a city like New York? Now, I remember when you were mayor, if a cop got hurt, 3 in the morning you were at the hospital. If a fireman got hurt, 3 in the morning you were at the hospital. I don't think you missed one time when you were mayor. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
How do you govern one of the largest cities if you don't have the support of the police department? How is that possible? What does the mayor need to do?
Well, the mayor needs to apologize. The mayor needs to apologize for the police for having defamed them. If you take the sum total of the mayor's comments and the president's comments, they have defamed the police. They've created the impression that there is and I think the president even used these words, I think he did, a systemic problem. There isn't a systemic problem of racism. In certain communities, there's a systemic problem of crime, and then you deal with it. I mean, it used to be a systemic problem of crime with Italians, with the mafia, and I dealt with that and took plenty of heat for dealing with it. But you deal with it as crime, not as race. You don't make a racial situation out of this.
Let me go back to Saturday night when the police commissioner and the mayor spoke. This is just prior to this, the mayor had the police turn his back on them. And he talked about that if you have any information that any cop may be at risk, you know, you've got to report it. Here's what he said.
That any time anyone has information that there might be an attack on our police, there might be an act of violence directed at any police officer, it is imperative that be reported immediately.
Did the mayor miss the chanting of what do we want dead cops? Did he miss the FDR Drive being taken over and the Brooklyn Bridge where cops were assaulted? Did he miss those moments?
Well, you know, he reversed a pattern of how to deal with protests that I started and Mayor Bloomberg continued and went on for 20 years as a result of the Crown Heights riots. We didn't let rioters take control of, or even protesters take control of streets. You have a right to protest, but you don't have a right to take a bridge. You don't have a right to take the FDR Drive. You don't have the right to block our streets where ambulances are trying to get through with people who are having heart attacks and might die because they're delayed by protesters. Now, I mean, I don't know if the mayor doesn't bother to look at these things. I used to have these tapes brought to me by the police commissioner, but he was meeting with and talking to the very people who were yelling, you know, kill the police. He had meetings with them. Maybe he could have told them. So, and why did he speak out then? Why didn't he speak out when it meant something? Talking on Saturday night was, you know, too little, too late. The time to speak out about the people who were saying kill the police was when they were doing it. He should have lectured them about it. He should have said, I'm not going to tolerate that. You're not going to take my bridge. You're not going to take the FDR Drive. You're going to conduct these protests on the street. And if you start this stuff about the police and you hurt a police officer, you're going to get arrested right away.
Yeah, I think this is good advice. You can't let the protesters control your bridges, your streets, and he needs to apologize to the police. I don't know if I see that coming, and I don't know if the president will ever do such a thing, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, the police deserve it. They deserve that apology, and these two men and their families really deserve an apology.
Well said.